believe in the ripple effect.
What's up, everybody? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricardo Rendes, also known as Ricky Franz, and a great episode for you today. Today, we have returning guest on this show and a regular on my other show, The Union of the Unwanted, Monica Perez. She's the host of Deep Dives with Monica Perez and also a co-host of The Propaganda Report. She's one of the most interesting and fun people to chat with, so I know you're going to enjoy this amazing conversation about everything and anything. And anytime Monica is on this show or any show, trust me, it's worth listening to. But before we get into this amazing conversation, let me remind you, this is a value for value show. If you get any value out of these discussions I bring to you, consider giving some value back. It doesn't have to be financial. Of course, you can rate, review, comment on the show, like the show, subscribe to the show, wherever you listen or watch the Ripple Effect podcast. Also, post it. It's open source. Feel free to put it anywhere you would like. The goal is to get the conversations out there. So regardless who gets the views or who gets the clicks, I just want people to find the show and hopefully get something out of these amazing conversations. But if you are in a good financial situation and you can financially support a show that you enjoy, a show that you download, a show that you listen to on a regular basis, please consider doing so. And there are many different ways you can help support the show financially. One way is Patreon. You can join our Patreon page, support us as little as $1 a month. And if you did that, if a small percentage of you guys did that, I could easily do the show full time. So please consider the fact that less than a cup of coffee, you can help support this show that you enjoy and also help with the goal of eventually helping turn this passion project into a full-time project. You can also send a one-time donation via Venmo or via PayPal, and thank you everybody who does do that. Trust me, anybody who sends me a tip on Venmo or PayPal or anybody who consistently supports the show on Patreon, I do notice you, I do pay attention, and anytime life gets a little bit crazy and the show takes a backseat to my full-time job and other priorities, I do remember those tips. I remember people who support me on Patreon, and thinking about those people who care enough about the show to support something financially really energizes me to find the energy and find the time to keep putting out episodes. So honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you everyone who has ever and still does support the show financially. Anyone who's ever bought merch, which is another way you can support the show, I truly appreciate it. And speaking of merch, check out the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com or go to my website, therippleeffectpodcast.com, and find links to the merch store. Check out all the hoodies, t-shirts, stickers, mugs, and all the cool stuff with all the different logos we have. It's a great way of getting some cool merch with some cool designs and also supporting a podcast you enjoy. And hopefully, maybe it's even a conversation starter. A lot of people listen to podcasts. So if you're wearing some podcast merch, somebody's going to ask some questions about it and hopefully spark a really good conversation. So another great reason to check out the merch store, the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com. And then, of course, a couple sponsors. First one being Content Safe. Content Safe is how I sync all my video channels together. I upload to one platform like a Odyssey or a YouTube, and magically those videos show up on BitChute, Rumble, Substack, Rockfin, and all the video platforms I'm on. Content Safe also runs my website. So if you're a content creator, streamer, YouTuber, podcaster, anything like that, and these sound like services that might interest you, please reach out to Content Safe. Let them know you're a listener of the Ripple Effect podcast, and they'll definitely hook you up. the next sponsor is the University of Reason. If you're at a crossroads in life, if you're looking to just try something new, connect with a new community, liberty-minded, freedom-minded community, if you want to be taught some new skills from some of the most intelligent people in alternative media, check out the University of Reason and the very popular autonomy courses created by Richard Grove, who is the host of the Grand Theft World podcast. He's a documentary filmmaker, author, researcher, historian, and honestly, one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. And he put together some amazing courses to help a lot of people who are just looking to advance themselves in life and learn and connect with an amazing community. If this seems like something you might be interested in, please use the links in the show description, and hopefully you can help yourself and support the Ripple Effect podcast at the same time. And then the last but not least sponsor is Element Electrolytes. It is electrolytes you can put in your coffee, you can put in your water. It helps you stay hydrated. It's keto friendly, fasting friendly, has no artificial colors, no artificial sweeteners, has tons of benefits if you're just trying to stay hydrated during vacation or working outside, or you're an elite athlete trying to optimize your body and mind while playing sports. Check out Element Electrolytes. There's a reason why so many athletes use it. It tastes awesome. It has the right dosages to really help with muscle fatigue, cramping, headaches, anything else that might be related to dehydration. It's a premium product with premium ingredients, sweetened with the stevia leaf, and I drink it just about every day. You can mix it with pre-workout. You can use it as a pre-workout to help get the most out of your workouts. It's also great for post-workout, just to hydrate your muscles. And that's the thing people don't realize, is that drinking water will get hydration into your blood, but to really get it into your muscles and tissue, you need electrolytes. The mastermind who created Element Electrolytes is a OG in the health and nutrition community. His name is Rob Wolf. He's a best-selling author. He was one of the first people to really make the paleo diet popular. He does jiu-jitsu. He was one of the first people to open up a CrossFit gym in the US. He's been in many documentaries about health and nutrition. He's been interviewed on all the big shows that talk about health and nutrition, like JRE, and he's also been on the Ripple Effect podcast a few times. So he has an amazing resume, and if you use the link in the show description, you can get a free gift with every purchase. And while you're on that website, also check out all the science and info on why professional athletes use Element Electrolytes and why it really is the superior product for hydration. That's it. Enjoy this amazing conversation, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.
Not too much. What's happening with you? How's your new year going? You seem so busy these days.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about the winter is my full-time gig slows down quite a bit, and it gives me a lot more free time to kind of focus on getting out episodes and really just. And I live in the East Coast, so obviously it's winter, so it's cold. There's not a whole lot to do.
Less coaching. That's the thing that I think put you over the edge, was the kids stuff. How old are your kids?
So my daughter's 7 and my son's 8. It's funny because yesterday I was supposed to have James Corbett on, and he messed up on the time. And then my wife comes downstairs. She's like, "Oh, no podcast." And I'm like, "No." And then I'm like, she's like, just joking around. She's like, "Let's record one ourselves." And I'm like, "Really?" And I'm like, well, what we could do is record one with our kids. We recorded one like a couple years ago with our kids.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm like, "Hey, let's see what happens. Put microphones in front of them, let them talk, and see what happens." And it turned out they talked for like 30 minutes, I think, and which was pretty good. And it was pretty silly and fun. And then we're like, you know what? I have everything set up. Why not do another one? So we ended up recording. We called it a Ricardo and Gia Kidcast, and they were talking a little bit about playing their, sports and all that stuff. But it's always fun when you get kids to talk, because similar to adults, like when you have to verbalize your opinions and ideas and feelings on things, you actually like sort it out in the process a little bit.
And also, it's such a great record of their development. Like, it's better than pictures or even a video, because you really hear what they're saying. That's super cool. I've been doing that with my mom. So my mom's winding down on this plane of existence. She's going to be 95 on Thursday. Yeah, a week from Thursday. hopefully. And so a couple of times without her knowledge, I asked her a long time ago, do you mind if I just record you? Because I try to like get her to talk and it's so weird. She just goes into secretary voice, like a voice I've never heard before. And she's like totally polite and she sounds like she's answering the phone. And I really want to just hear her Brooklyn accent and her ranting about whatever Biden or something. So I secretly record her from time to time. And I mean, I know we're going to cherish it forever. And especially because it's so raw. But yeah, so these are the things I've been learning lately because I've been spending a lot of time with her. That I knew a couple of people, one who was going to jail and two people who were terminally ill, and they all said the same thing, like, all I care about is my relationships. So I feel like you gotta make the most of them when the opportunities arise, when you have little kids or old people winding down. So I love that you can capture it now.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Like, so similar situation with our kids, right? Like one day, our relatives, our kids, anybody, anybody around us that's young, they can go back way after we're gone and listen like to archived conversations about mentally where we were in certain life events. I mean, people can go back during COVID, hopefully if they don't erase it all from from the internet. But luckily, thanks to Content Safe and some of these other platforms that we can upload to, hopefully it'll be available forever. But people can go back and kind of see like what was our feelings during the whole process, emotionally, mentally, what were we going through. So I think it's awesome. When I started my podcast, I didn't have kids yet, but once I did, I thought about that. I'm like, how unique of an experience would it be for me not to just hear stories from relatives or my parents about them when they were young, but actually hear them when they were younger and hear, what they're going through, maybe even the whole parenting experience. Like my kids don't realize, but like early in my I think I've told them like early in my podcast, soon after when I found out I was becoming a father, I talked about it on the air, and I would have guests on. Like I had the professor of psychology from Notre Dame on. She does a lot of books on parenting, and would have people on, and I would talk about my experiences becoming a father. And I haven't even gone back and listened to those, but I'm kind of curious, even for myself, like what was I going through? That whole just
Your expectations are so crazy. And as far as hearing people in their own time say what they say, we have a picture now. I had a grand niece, so my sister's son, my godson, had a baby and so I'm the youngest of 9, so I'm a little like off generationally, but so my mom, who's going to be 95, was holding this little teeny baby who's 7 pounds. And I thought, when that baby's 95, it's going to be like 2119 or something. And she's going to have a picture of someone who was born in 1929 holding her. And so you have this like real time thing. And you also could hear the assumptions people are making about the world that they're living in. And like, I always think that with you're pulling down Robert E. Lee, or you're pulling down these statues, you're for abortion, but you're against slavery. And I think, if you hear, they can curate that, but I've read articles from newspapers or writings from hundreds of years ago that say this idea that indigenous people aren't human, that slaves aren't human like you, or people aren't Christianized, if they aren't baptized, they don't count. Like, this is complete crap. You're just saying that because you want to steal their shit or have an easier life or whatever. And that's like, the language is so reflective of some of the pro-abortion arguments, which I don't like. Like, I understand if you're going to say, this is just, I don't want to do it, I'm not doing it, I'm not having this baby. Like, that's different from saying, well, it's not a person. So I like when you get that kind of stuff, the excuses that are made, say, for people in the past for supporting some of these, whatever it is, Hitler or slavery, whatever, there are counter voices. Like, I guess when people were against the war, Civil War, Revolutionary War, or World War I, they ended up going to jail, and they're like, well, they were spies. But if you actually could hear what they were saying, you would understand that they were just sticking to principles. And maybe we, unless they totally erase us, we are putting a record down that says, hey, you guys knew exactly what you were doing in all of these cases. You can make your argument, but we're pointing these things out to you. You need to answer that. There's going to be no excuses.
Well, absolutely. And the thing is, we would always constantly repeat history is written by the winners. And during COVID, it was a perfect example of it because they pushed the narrative that the vaccine is what gave us our normal back, our lives back, our ability to go. And it's like anybody who lived through it, anybody with, I guess with any ability to logically look at it would come to conclusion that's like, no, like it didn't stop anything. It just all it did was, after force feeding everybody this experimental vaccine, this experimental product, they finally got what they wanted, and then they started loosening up all the restrictions they put on our lives.
I actually think the vaccines are what spread it. I think that's how it spread. I don't think they sprayed it in the air. I don't think it escaped from a lab. I think for several reasons. One is just personal observation. I did not know anyone who had COVID until it started getting rolled out in my area. And I didn't get it until until the first recently vaccinated person I interacted with. I said, when they started rolling it out to kids, and no one listening here knows any kid who's ever had it. And now they will. Now people will know kids who had COVID. And I put this thing in my glossary. I have a glossary on my website, and I called it the AstraZeneca effect. So a couple of years ago, whenever it was, 2021, AstraZeneca was doing 5 trials, one in Kenya, one in Brazil, I think, one in South Africa, one in London or somewhere in England, and one in Japan. The Japan trial went on hold. So that left the other 4. And when I was reading an article about the 4 new strains, this is when they were first talking about new strains emerging of COVID, the 4 new strains, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta, were coming out of those 4 places: Kenya, Brazil, South Africa, and London. And I was like, oh, where they're giving people trial ones is where the stuff is spreading. And I really feel strongly about that. And maybe that's why Africa didn't get hit so hard, because they wouldn't take the vaccine. And same thing with Haiti, until they murdered that guy and then started bringing the vaccine in.
It's crazy. Looking back and reflecting, I'm still stunned how far it went and how much they got away with. Like, when you look at it, it's like, okay, there's so many things that made it obvious for like a person like you and I that this had nothing to do with a disease. This had nothing to do with the virus. It had nothing to do with trying to protect or save people. And yet to get to that point where people are screaming at each other, there was tension in the air. I couldn't go anywhere without feeling like there was just anxiety everywhere. Like there was some, and it really made me think about those, all those studies and theories about consciously all of us being connected, because it's like, you felt it. I remember I couldn't go to the grocery store without feeling like there's tension everywhere. And then once COVID got behind us, for the most part, just people started smiling a little more. People started, being a little friendlier. There wasn't as much anxiety, and it just felt like I couldn't quantify it. I couldn't understand what I was feeling or sensing, but I sensed it. And even today, I went, I go to the gym every morning. And today, I was just between sets, just looking at people, picking up dumbbells, people talking to each other, and just everything looked completely normal. And I was just reflecting, wow, it wasn't that long ago that people were freaking out about being close to each other. It's insane.
We didn't even know if we were going to get back to normal. And I feel like as soon as we got some semblance of normalcy, I breathed such a sigh of relief. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to think about it. My desire to be activist and deal with any of this stuff. I was absolutely exhausted and fatigued from the whole thing. I still kind of feel like, I'm getting old. I don't know how much more I can care about saving the world, or even if it's possible. But I will say a couple of things in response to what you're saying, although it's not completely gone, because I was at a Christmas party recently and someone was saying how one guy said, I always thought the mandates were a bad idea. So they were all vax people, but it's like, I thought the mandates were a bad idea. And someone else said, but other people were making us sick. And I was like, that is just that is absolutely not true. Like that's been proven. There's absolutely no question about that. And even the original guy was like, yeah, that's not true. Chick walked away. She just walked away. I was like, are we still like, can't even have a conversation? But for the most part, I have no problems. Like I don't even talk about it, but it's not a big deal. But I will say, like, if you read that 2017 document from Johns Hopkins, the SPARS thing, whatever, I forget what it stands for, but it's basically the media outline. It's 25 points of like how to handle the propaganda during this. And if you start getting towards the later chapters, the last couple of chapters, one of them says, like, how do we handle it when people realize that the first movers, those who accepted the vaccine, are getting sick? That it was bad. Do you thank them for their sacrifice? Do you ignore it? Like this is scenario planning. And I don't know if that didn't even happen. Like we took it on the chin to the point where people don't even realize. But one of the things that, I have a list of things I expect for 2024. One of the things is just a massive spike in cancer. I kind of expect that. But I have observed that people are getting weird cancers, whether they were vaccinated, the majority, I think, were vaccinated, or if they just had COVID bad. Like, I think COVID itself, the bioweapon itself, is also rather damaging, kind of like Lyme disease. So, but my point was just that SPARS document made it seem like there would be more of a reaction. And to your point, like, people just took it. And I don't see people really getting pissed in retrospect. I think they're just like keeping the blinders on.
Yeah, it was wild because a lot of people that I didn't expect to fold that easily did, and other people that I didn't expect to be so outspoken stepped up. So I mean, there were some pros and cons, but I do think that big pharma, like the thing about big pharma is like they've been doing this forever. Like this isn't new. Like they've been force feeding us their products, using sketchy science, paying people off, controlling the media forever. I mean, I for the longest time I was the anti-vax conspiracy theorist, and now people are much more open to those discussions. I mean, to me, big pharma was always like the neglected just topic that alternative media didn't talk about. Like we would talk about big food, you look like Monsanto, that was always a narrative and a topic people would hit on. We would talk
defense, finance, energy.
Yep, exactly. All that stuff. But I'm like, but big pharma, I'm like, they're literally killing us directly, not even indirectly.
Yes, I'm putting out a show. I have, because I'm traveling a lot to my mom's. I've gone through some old interviews, stuff that I really feel like are really timely now, but like kind of a best of. And one of them is a conversation I had with Massimo Matsuko, who did the films American Moon. I met him on Union of the Unwanted, although I had been a super fan. And he did the next Pearl Harbor, I think it was called, the new Pearl Harbor.
Yep.
And I asked him, like, what's the true nature of power on Earth and in the universe, which is my favorite question to ask people. And right out of the gate, he said, big pharma. Big pharma is the most powerful thing on earth, basically. So I'm replaying that. But yeah, I had totally neglected that in my military industrial complex thinking, which I always thought of as defense, finance, and energy. And then after that, big farm, tech, big pharma, but it's so dominant. And another thing that is kind of on my agenda for 2024 for what to watch out for is them taking it to the next level of what does big pharma want? What big pharma wants and needs, like how do they grow their market, is that healthy people, well people who are not physically ill, because we have higher health now, we're more, better health for the most part. What do they need? They need to be able to give well people drugs all the time. And the two biggest ways they can do that for well people is vaccines, so fear, and creating mental health problems so that people have to be on that all the time. And then I would say the second tier for them is having a lot of chronic illnesses that require constant drugs, like cholesterol, which is good for you. You have to like take a drug to keep that down. So heart problems in general, cancer is just such a prolonged thing now, can last forever. Strokes, you take blood thinners forever. Thyroid problems I expect to increase because people have to be on thyroid problems. The trans stuff, like those people have to be on drugs forever. So yes, I think big pharma, maybe Courtney Turner might say hand in hand with Tavistock, is, crafting our reality so that we have to take drugs every day.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at like the cholesterol number. There's been I always forget her name, but she's a Australian journalist who kind of exposed the fact that there was no science behind the number that they decided is when they start recommending their drug. And it's not that hard to believe, because if you're big pharma and you're like, okay, how do we come up with a number to when we tell doctors to start recommending our product? Why wouldn't we make that number as low as possible?
They keep lowering it. They lowered the blood pressure number now too. And I was just listening to Kathleen Ellis maybe on Courtney Turner's show, who I'm not like, I don't have a lot of time for podcasts, but Courtney's really been rolling out some good ones lately. So this chick, I tracked down her YouTube video because she has like playlists. And one of them was doctors who will talk openly about the fact that calcification in your arteries, which is bad, is not related to cholesterol. And one thing that, I mean, I don't like to jinx stuff, but like I'm married to a Texan, so it's just red meat, red wine. That's all we do. And I love to make sauerkraut and fermented foods. And apparently sauerkraut is a natural source of vitamin K, which redirects calcium from your arteries into your bones. So it's like excellent for you, but it has nothing to do. I mean, cholesterol is important, like it's got nothing to, I actually think some of these things just make you, I think we all agree. Some of these things make you sicker. And it's actually called iatrogenic illness, IATRA or OGENIC, where the medicine you take actually exacerbates the underlying problem. So they give you more of the medicine and you just get worse. That's how I think my brother died from AZT poisoning from AIDS. Like, as he was had no problems with his T cells. He took AZT, his T cells tanked, then he took more, tanked again, and just fucking died.
You ever see that Rogan podcast with Dr. Was it Duesberg? The guy?
Oh, wow. No, but I have his book, which I got it from a listener. I know he's probably listening now. Don't even look at how much it's worth on the internet, but on like A-Books or whatever. But I cherish this book. It's called Inventing the AIDS Virus. And the prologue was Carrie Ellis wrote the prologue. Yeah, I didn't know that. I have to listen to that.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. So I've been I've been down the pharma rabbit hole for a long time. That's why Massimo, when I had him on the Union of Unwanted, I was actually super psyched that you knew who he was, because I'm like, am I the only guy who knows like the great?
No, he wrote Cures for Cancer. He did a documentary on Cures for Cancer, and just having him on my show, I got a strike on YouTube. Wasn't even that big a deal. Like, I wanted to talk about the moon.
Yeah.
Yes, I loved him. I was super big snaps on him.
Yeah, when I had him on the first time, I mean, we talked a lot about 9/11, his 9/11 documentary, 9/11 or the New
Pearl Harbor, I think he's.
And then, but I also talked a lot about his cancer cures documentary, because those were rabbit holes that I felt like I felt like his documentaries were important, because I'm like, one exposes one threat, which is big pharma, and the other one, the military industrial complex, and they're both equally as dangerous. And yet only one is getting all the attention in the alternative media. Like, everybody wants to talk about 9/11, geopolitics, PNAC, neocons, all the stuff. But I'm like, what about our domestic threat? The fact that like your loved ones are being fed, poison, and are being lied to about what they should be eating or how they should be living, and getting and being made sick. And then you have to take their pills, which will make you even sicker or give you symptoms that require other pills. It's a perfect business practice. And the thing is too, is like, I just had a guest on, earlier today, a doctor, and we talked a lot about these topics. And, one thing I constantly say, it's like, everybody wants to talk about how do we make healthcare more affordable, when really the question to be is, why are we all so unhealthy, and why do we need affordable healthcare? Like, I haven't seen a doctor in years. I mean, I cannot remember the last time I visited a doctor. The only reason that I've even seen a hospital is because I've had some sports injuries, like I've dislocated my shoulder, I've fractured both arms, I've done like stuff like that. And then once I'm out of the hospital, I'm like, let me take my vitamins, let me get back to, just taking care of my body the natural way, and I'll let everything fall into place. But like, why do we have to go on a pill every single day? Why do so many people have chronic illnesses? Why, that's the question we should get to. But instead, big pharma, their perspective of like, instead of getting to the root cause, let's just focus on the symptom. That has kind of, become the whole world's perspective on health, where it's like, it's not about getting to the root cause. Oh, let's just take care of the symptom. The symptom is we need to figure out how to make these pills more affordable, and how do we have access to them. It's like, how about we get to the root cause of like, why do we need so many pills? I forget which comedian said it. I always refer to this joke. I mean, it might have been Bill Maher, but Bill Maher said, back in the day, they used to ask you, at a doctor's visit, like, are you on any prescription pills? Today, they ask you, how many prescription pills are you on? And it's like, we didn't realize that we've transitioned into this world where this has become completely normalized. But not that long ago, just a generation ago, like, that wasn't normal at all.
I agree with you. And I don't even think it's necessary. I have so many things to say in response to what you're saying just there. One, first of all, I've seen this quote. Is it Voltaire, or is it really not even a quote? I don't know. But like, look to whom you're not allowed to talk about. And that's where the power lies. And it really is, I think, pharma in part, because that's what gets my YouTube stuff taken down and election stuff. My grandmother, my mother's mother, lived till she was 95. And looks like my mother's going to have the same profile, even though finally, when my mother was in her 70s or 80s, they finally talked her into going to a heart doctor. He gave her all sorts of drugs. And now when I see her, she was basically bleeding to death from these blood thinners, and they were ready to just write her off. They're like, I don't know what's wrong with her. She can't even get out of bed. So my sister had the great idea. It's like, take her off the blood thinners. And she perked up when she stopped, and then slowly but surely, when I was staying with her, I took away some of the other things they were giving her that weren't like heart critical. But even then, she's like, they have her on one heart pill, which is like for AFib. And she said, I've never had AFib in my life. I've never had a heart palpitation in my life. So the only thing that I'm really in favor of is she takes gout medicine, because gout is so painful. I'm just like, okay, that's fine. But because I have this like super frail person, I can see, you can like literally see the impact. When she takes a pill, she'll like fall asleep, or she can't get out of bed. And I think with us healthy people, we can just power through that. Like when I was young, my hangovers, I never even thought of like a 2-day hangover. Now, like, I think I might've had a 3-day hangover once in a while. Like, you just don't metabolize it, but that's how you can see the impact that it's having. And given that she's not living any longer than her own mother, who did not go to a doctor. The last time she died at 95, the last time she had seen a doctor was when she was 35 and had her last child. So, and he came to the house. So that was 60 years, made no difference whatsoever, which means that it's, I think genes are a big part. And the reason they need us to have affordable healthcare, it's just a subsidy to big pharma, because that's what makes people sick. And there's this thing I may have mentioned to you, the Hispanic paradox. I've mentioned it before. They don't know why, but people who don't speak English, Hispanics who don't speak English, no matter what country they're from, high cayenne consumers, or like Puerto Rico, which doesn't have the hot stuff at all, or whatever, it doesn't matter at all. If they don't speak English, they live 8 years longer on average. This has nothing to do with weight or any other habits. And that chick who moved to Panama, that doctor, she's hard to get on the air. She was I think she went to Harvard and Princeton, maybe, black chick. I can't remember her name, but she's like, it'll blow your mind. And they chased her out, like took her license away because she stopped giving people pharma. And she was saying that she thinks it's because they can't hear the propaganda. They cannot interpret the propaganda. So every time I see like Telemundo or Univision or whatever, I'm like, they have to propagandize everybody in this country. They would probably I bet, wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. government subsidizes Spanish speaking propaganda.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. But it's funny because so I'm Portuguese. My parents watch a lot of Portuguese channel. I live right outside of Springfield, Massachusetts. I play a lot of basketball, and around a lot of Spanish basketball players, but friends of mine who play basketball. They it seems like, I don't know if they get as much propaganda, but I feel like they're less to rebel against, the authority. Like, I feel like, at least from my personal experiences, like it seems like a lot of them would be open to the fact that it's all bullshit we've been lying to if I talk to him about it. But because the TV told them to wear a mask, and probably because they feel like they just want to fit in. Maybe as a foreigner, that's a big part of like, hey, I don't want to, stir anything up. I just want to fit in. Let me just kind of do what they tell me type thing. I did see some of that, but that makes sense too. The fact that like maybe on those channels, the propaganda isn't as direct, or there isn't as much of it. So maybe, they just don't notice it as much, or it's not as good, or whatnot.
Maybe they didn't even put the money in it. Like, I don't know if like 90% of the commercials I see when I do watch commercial television is pharma, which is not sold directly to people. It's not a direct consumer thing. Like you know what I mean? It's just to lock up what RFK said. It's just to lock up the propaganda coming out of the news on those channels. But it could also be, this is a big problem with the US, I think, is that we have this legacy of the free press. Like, we have this legend in the world that we also grew up on. Whereas I think if you grew up in Soviet Russia, you kind of take TASS and Pravda with a grain of salt. But here we don't, and it's going to take forever. So maybe people come in and think, oh my gosh, like, this is America. I can believe what they tell me. This is the land of freedom. But boy, that I don't know when people are going to wake up to that. That's over.
Yeah, well, I would say so. It's funny because you talked about most of my diet is wine and red meat. That's literally.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
I eat
Vino. I'm like, that's it. We have a little vineyard back here, and I want to call it that. That I think that's ripping off Mario Batali, but that's what I always think. My husband too, and his brother came down with like heart problems, and I said, like, you don't understand, and his wife's a vegan or whatever. I'm like, I don't think that's good for you. I'm trying to send him this stuff, and he, it freaks people out, like, because they think that that if they did what you said, that I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I just live the way I live, and I've followed in my mother's footsteps, and like, I just don't go crazy on, even when I take supplements, I don't take one every single day. Like, I just don't go crazy on anything. But if you tell this guy he doesn't have to watch his cholesterol, he just needs to get some like grass-fed red meats, to soften that stuff up or whatever. They think they're going to die. And I really don't know. I never did a study of it. I'm not recommending it to people. I'm just saying this is what I do. And it's working for me. I mean, like, my actual like results are good, are much better than that guy's. So it could be genes. I really don't know, but
no, I think
not. Yeah, right. I don't know.
So one of the first things that made me skeptical about what we've been told about food and nutrition and medicine is so my parents, I was born in Portugal, and my parents, we grew up in a town in Massachusetts where it was like a huge Portuguese population. So they didn't really have to learn the language, the English language. They've always worked with Portuguese people, went to Portuguese bakeries, restaurants. So I would have to go to the doctors with them to translate. And at a really young age, I would, go to the doctor with my father, and the doctor would tell me in English, of course, and I would translate that he has like ridiculously high cholesterol. And he would tell me the number. And at the time, I was a little confused because it was so high. I remember thinking, like, isn't that like more like a credit score? And it was like that high, like not even joking. And then he told me how many patients he has, right? He's like, I have this many hundreds of patients. He's like, I'm not exaggerating. He's like, your father has by far the highest out of all of them. So of course, like, as a young child, probably like early teenager, I'm like freaking out. Like, my dad's gonna die. This guy's
right.
And my dad's gonna have a heart attack. This and that. So
that is weird though. Like, having super, super high cholesterol definitely doesn't sound normal. Like,
but I remember, like, okay, so the whole ride home, I'm like yelling with my father. I'm like, you got to change your lifestyle.
Yes.
You're not gonna live. No.
No vegan.
And then the following year, right? Go with him again. Same conversation. Then the following year, and then I started getting. I'm a naturally, like most of us in this field, we're naturally skeptical. So I started asking a couple questions. I'm like, listen, every year I come here and you tell me that he's like he's gonna have a heart attack like any day now.
Right.
I'm like, it's been years now. I'm like, he says he's never felt better. There's nothing wrong with him. He has zero health.
Right.
Besides this number that you're giving me, that's supposedly shows or highlights the fact that he has health issues. I'm like, you get him to take Lipitor, which I'm like, I'm not too familiar with.
Oh,
sure, is toxic to his liver, and he's a wine drinker. He drinks wine every single night, And I'm like, don't you like, isn't that a concern? And then he's like, well,
Yeah.
the heart attack will kill him before the Lipitor does. And I'm like, well, I'm first of all, that's not reassuring. Second of all, the heart attack hasn't killed him, and I'm starting to get skeptical if his cholesterol is even something we should be concerned about, and if he should be on this drug consistently
Yeah.
for something that's not having a negative effect on him. So that was like the first time that I'm like, you know what, let me look into this cholesterol thing. And then come to find out, like, most heart attacks are people who have average cholesterol levels. So it's like, it's not the cholesterol killing them. Like, and then you find all these other researchers, like I said before, like the Australian researcher who showed that there was no science behind the numbers when they started recommending it, and that cholesterol is is a hormone, and there's all these other complications and different types of way of observing it and understanding it, and that it's not as cut and dry as good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. If your numbers here, you're going to have a heart attack.
There's a thing called it's a CAC score, CAC. It's like calcified artery thing. Bizarrely, insurance will not pay for it. It's $150. It's a CAT scan of your heart. So I don't like imaging at all. But every once, I mean, I've done it twice. The first time I was like still asleep. It was 10 years ago. And somebody got me, an executive physical. My husband, he was like, I want to make sure you're great. And everything was totally great. And then recently it's like, let me just see if my lifestyle is fine. Cause I'll never do it again. It's just a sanity check. And like the score was 0. And yeah. So and when I tell you, I don't care at all about cholesterol. Like I actually get frustrated when I eat anything but basically like meat and, even now they're saying like superfoods or lettuce or whatever, like kale is all fucking bad for you. So I'm really topsy-turvy, but that number that helps you. That's in my mind, that's the information I want. I don't care about cholesterol. I don't know what my cholesterol is, but I just want that number. And Andrew Kaufman, Dr. Kaufman, had a thing with Cowan about the turpentine cure. Have you ever heard of this? It's too crazy sounding. It's some way of ingesting turpentine, which is, I mean, I've had my share of pine needle extract. That's an easy one. I can put it in cocktails and whatever. But this supposedly like cleans out your arteries. I don't know. But anyway, I feel like that calcification of the arteries is a problem and probably need to investigate how to deal with that. But I don't know. I believe what Kathleen Ellis's playlist was saying is that it is not correlated with cholesterol levels.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I'm the same way. Like, I don't ever look at any of my number. I haven't had blood work. I haven't done. I'm like, I feel great. I look great. Anytime I have a issue, I try to self-diagnose. I'm like, okay, is there a dietary thing I could do? Could I change my diet slightly or whatever? And the thing is, most diets, and I've had so many people on, Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, Dr. Sean Baker, Rob Wolf, who initially wrote the paleo books and is one of my sponsors, Element Electrolytes. And I love Element Electrolytes. He actually was a sponsor because I had him on, and then he's like, hey,
yeah, and you loved it.
sponsor. I'm like, well, if that means I just don't have to pay for your product, which I take anyways, sure.
Yes. Does he do fasting? Is that what the election? Because I can easily fast for 36 hours, but I don't feel well unless I get some kind of electrolyte. So I used to just drink like superfood smoothies, but I am never touching that again.
Yeah, it's called Element. And
oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
I'll send you.
All right.
I'll send you the link. You can use. You get a free gift
Okay.
if you want to. But
Right.
it's yeah. So if you're fasting, Element, I fast every day. I eat one meal a day. So during the day, it's basically, if I have anything, I got a can of it here. Like this kombucha.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Remedy is a good one because there's no sugar in it. It's the only one. They let them. I don't know if it's like a 30-day or 40-day
fermentation.
process.
Yeah.
So then all the sugar is gone.
That's right. Yeah.
So this one, if I'm going to have anything besides electrolytes, like that's one I'll have. But Element will not kick you out of fasting, will not kick you out of ketosis if you're doing any of those diets. And I kind of do both those things. And it's just sodium, magnesium, and potassium, but it's also high in
How much potassium?
I could look it up.
I'm sorry, it's not on the back of your can, right? Okay, because potassium you cannot get in a pill. Like it has to be. It's illegal. So it has to be like in a liquid, and that's the one thing that's very hard to get. So anyway, don't worry about it, but keep
And
talking.
it's high in sodium because sodium's a
Yeah, of
mineral.
course.
I mean, that's the thing. Like
Yeah,
people don't realize, like,
helps you retain water.
yeah, and what you need, because the
Of
thing is, I
course.
drink water, it gets it into my bloodstream, but the electrolytes are going to get it into my tissue that really actually hydrate you and help you, with many different things. I mean, many people have migraines or just fatigue, just being tired, not even just muscle fatigue or cramping, but just like overall fatigue. It could be from dehydration. There's times where like I'm like, before I have another coffee today, I'm like, let me just hydrate, hammer down some electrolytes, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I got a little boost of energy. You don't, and especially in the winter, because in the winter you just don't, you don't feel like, oh, I need a drink as much because I don't find myself sweating as much. So, but that's not always the case. And then you need to hydrate yourself, and like I said, like the essential minerals. There's no essential carbs. People think like you need carbs. You don't need carbs. You can live. I go days
I
without.
think your body produces carbs. I mean, you need them, but I think your body actually
Well, you have
produces carbs.
glucose
Yeah.
neogenesis, which it can turn protein into glucose. So you don't need carbs. You can actually produce glucose if need be in this process. That's why they used to tell you, like, oh, people who take too much protein, that if you take too much, it turns into sugar. That's what they mean by it. Because if you take too much protein, they'll just
Oh,
it'll
interesting.
actually turn into glucose. But it's yeah, I mean, you don't need. I've gone days without, and I go to the gym every morning. A few times a week, I play soccer and basketball. I'm constantly, coaching, so I'm active and doing stuff, and I'll go all day without eating a thing and just electrolytes and some caffeine, and then at the end of the night, I like my uppers and downers. Like my uppers during the day, and then
Yes.
once it's time for dinner, I'm like, give me that glass of wine. That's why I don't like
Yes.
to drink, because mentally and physically, I'm so used to, like, once I have a glass of wine, it means I'm done for the day. Like,
Yes.
I don't have to be productive. I'm throwing in a towel for productiveness for the day. So if I day drink, I'm just like, I feel like I'm done for the
That's it.
day. You know,
That's vacation. I agree with you. It's like the upper and the downer. And I always say that like the alcohol starts this, I mean, caffeine starts the cycle of alcohol, like for people who really have a problem. For me, so I have to lose a few pounds because I go to the Grammys every year. It's a work thing of my husband. So I always have to fit into a dress, kind of keeps me honest. And ever since COVID, I gained like 10 pounds. I can't fit into any of these dresses. So I had to give up drinking. And the one thing that does help me with that, like I'm shutting down for the night thing, is I'll eat one of those CBD gummies from my guy. I don't know if you have a CBD. I have like the best, True Hemp Science. But so I love that turning off thing. But I can't eat nothing. Maybe I could get used to it, but I have to eat. I mean, I don't have to eat a ton, but I cannot understand how you do that. And do you think it varies from person to person, or do you think that it's just because you've trained yourself to do it? Like, do you think I could train myself to do what you do?
oh,
I
I,
don't know, man.
I,
I'm a
I
chick.
I was one of those people that I would go to the like go play sports or whatever, and if I didn't eat enough, I would have that feeling of like, oh, I
You
got
get
blood
sick.
sugar, I'm
Yeah.
getting dizzy, I don't have that anymore, and that's because
Wow.
your body's a hybrid car. It can run off glucose, or can run off fats, and it's called fat storage because it's storing it for when.
Right.
Well, if I keep giving it, it's almost like like a hybrid car. You give it gas, and it won't use the battery until it runs out of
Mhm.
gas. Well, if I keep filling the gas tank, the fat storage just stays there. So it's like you need to, like, stop giving it gas, so then it starts running off the battery. And that's kind of the same thing with your body. Like the keto flu, what a lot of people would call.
Yes, I get that for
Yeah.
sure.
And that's just from like your body transitioning or learning to burn fat, the fat storage. And the reason why, once you hop in ketosis, and you can check your ketones with they have these little strips that you put in your urine, and then it'll tell you if you have ketones in your system. But if like I almost knew every single time, like, I'm in ketosis, because I would lose all appetite. My
Yes.
energy
I've
was
seen that. Yeah, I've done that.
sustained, and the good thing is, like, once you do it for a long periods of time, you're quite flexible. Like when I first started, I remember years ago when I first started doing
Oh,
keto diets, like once I cheated, like if I had I would call them reward days, and it would take me a while to get back in ketosis. Like I'd feel like the next day I couldn't go all day without eating. I could, but I'd be hungry, and then I would struggle to go a whole day without eating. And then after a while, like my body got so used to going like days and days of just eating once and eating high. Most of what I eat is just fatty meat, a little
Yeah.
bit of salad, and if I do any salads or any sauces with my food, it's always Primal Kitchen stuff. I've been following Mark Sisson way before he even had Primal Kitchen. I'm a huge fan of his.
It's the best. Yeah. Mark's Primal Kitchen. As soon as I got to my mom's and she was like, and not doing well, I was just like, wait here. The first day I got there, I was like, I'm calling a priest. But then and she perked up immediately. But then I just started like, is there any red meat in the house? Like, get out of my way. Just burgers, roast beef, filet mignon, whatever. And she always said that, like, when I eat meat, I just feel like $1,000,000.
Well, it's true, and it's about the quality of meat too. Like that's what people.
Yes.
It's almost like cigarettes ruined, smoking in general.
Yes.
Like everybody assumed like if you smoked marijuana or if you smoke cigars, it all has the same effect on you, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like cigars has one ingredient, tobacco and vegetable oil to kind of keep it stuck together. But like there's one ingredient. Cigarettes have hundreds of ingredients and hundreds of things
Interesting.
that are toxic for you. So that's why I remember I had this. Her name's Delicia Silva. They call her the cigar vixen. She was a cigar reviewer, and I had her on. We did a whole show on cigars, and she swore up and down that she's like, I've been to the farms in Honduras, Nicaragua. She's like all over the world. She's always in magazines and stuff. She's like very well known in the cigar industry and world. And she knows all these families. She's like generation after generation, they're smoking cigars. He's like, you grow up on a tobacco farm, you're smoking cigars at a young age. You're smoking. It's just
a lot of cigar smoking in my house, and I've been worried about it a lot. Like,
I smoke. I smoke occasionally too. Yeah. Well, that's why I had her on because I'm a big. I like.
yes,
I like my cigars. I like my bourbons. So anything that I've done a show on. And
it's like the Woody Allen movies. Like, get him a steak, a cigarette, and a whiskey, but not a cigarette, a cigar.
yeah, well, it's because it's like it's like eating McDonald's every day and then being like, hey, see, burgers are bad for you because I'm really sick. It's like, no, it's not the meat. It's
Right.
like low quality. Cigarettes is, I would always say, like cigarettes is the McDonald's of smoking. Like cigars is just a leaf. If you watch it, you realize how connected, how natural it really is. Like it's grown. It's a beautiful plant. It's then dried, right? And it's once it's dried, then
Pot too. I've read that pot smoking, maybe it's different now, but that people who smoke the same amount of pot, like fucking smokers, did not get cancer. There was no uptick in cancer. Could be different now, but I read that for sure.
well, how many people who are famously potheads, like Snoop Dogg? I mean,
Yes.
like why don't they all have cancer? There's tons of famous people who, like Mike Tyson, people who are known for like smoking every single day. If there was a real threat to smoking,
Rush Limbaugh and the cigars, though, that bummed me out. But who knows what else he was up to?
Yeah. Well, I remember like as a Celtics fan, I remember like Red Auerbach used to smoke. And I remember going to Celtics games when he was still alive, and Celtics would pay the fine for him to smoke in the stadium because they're like, like this guy is great.
Wow.
And I love that. So you would see him like, smoke, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I got into smoking. I'm like, and then the thing with me is like mental health is equally as important.
Absolutely. Stress is a killer. 4 things kill you, right? Isn't it? Radiation, toxins, malnutrition, and stress. Are those the 4 things?
It might be, but stress is definitely
one of them, and it's so true. It's so obvious.
My wife would sometimes be like, "Well, you're such a health nut, like, and yet, like, you smoke cigars." I'm like, "Yeah," but I'm like, the mental benefits I get and emotional benefits I get of like relaxing, having a smoke, and just chilling and being able to reflect or even just hit reset on my life and my thoughts and on everything. I'm like, those benefits way surpass any negative effects I might have from cigar.
Prozac? What the fuck is that? And by the way, God created heaven and earth and said it was good. So that's why, like, I feel like somebody said that to me once because I'm not going to blame Catholicism. It's my own thing, but like, I just feel guilty sometimes. I have a Protestant work ethic. I just want to work all the time. Like, I'm only happy when I only feel not guilty. I'm just working. And, but my husband's the opposite. Like, he works like a dog and then he just turns off, like have a glass of wine. And I love hanging out with him and doing that. And sometimes feel guilty. And someone says to me, God created heaven and earth. He said it was good. Like you owe it. Like, just sit there and enjoy it. And that's why, like, the Opus Dei thing in Spain, I believe Jose Maria Escobar, I forget which it is, but he was, I think he was like the head of education or something under Franco. And they were worried. Franco wanted an economic resurgence, revival, or not but surge. And he said, I think the idea was, I don't want to misquote because a lot of people like live this, and I don't want to say stuff that there's like that's wrong. I get that so much. I can't stand it. People are really committed, and if you just have a casual comment about something, it like upsets people. I don't want to upset anyone or offend anybody, but if I recall correctly, the idea was that they wanted the Spanish men to work harder. They wanted them, I think there was maybe a skirt chasing problem. So they told the wives to like dress better and be, don't let this guy wander. He needs to go to work during the day and come home and at night. But I'm thinking that the reverse is really true, like Italy and Spain, and really understand, probably Portugal too, really understanding the importance of balance, which is why I'm so kind of disgusted and opening my eyes to I don't even know if it's consumption as much as production, but this materialistic American system, which of course is exported, mercantilist, conquest over the hundreds of years over every single country. I really feel like Korea and Vietnam, those wars were about getting people out of the rice paddies and into the factories and absorbing all surplus and taking human beings and just getting every last bit out of them for numerous reasons. One, to have a vortex of wealth going up to the pinnacle, but also to keep people, to disconnect them from what's good and complex, spiritual. And like I started out this conversation saying, people in extremists or whatever, like they care about their relationships, and that's what wine and cigars and that's what it's for. And I think we've really lost something. And then when you have that impulse, what does the American system do? Drives it into fucking heroin, like it drives it into where, and then they spike it with fentanyl. Like it makes these natural impulse sex. Like, yes, yeah, it's great. Like marry someone you love, like relax, take a vacation, but instead it has to be, exploitive and on billboards and disconnected from that spiritual, I just love, I feel like that people come to this country, immigrants come to this country because I believe that they're wowed by the bells and whistles. They're wowed by the consumerism, and they really lose something and they don't know it. Like I'm only realizing it now, and they don't know it till it's too late. And it's bad for everything. It's bad for your health. Even if I lived less long, I'd want to live this way, but I don't even think you do.
It's funny you say that because it's something I talk about all the time on this show as a immigrant, a foreigner myself, and my kids are the first ones out of the whole Miranda's family that are, born here and Americans. And so I talk to my parents about this all the time. I talk to other foreigners about this all the time. It's like you come here to gain something, and in the process, you've lost something even more important. And my mother is stressed out of her mind about money and finances, and she's just always freaked out. She doesn't sleep at night sometimes. She's on, she's more or less unhealthy, I would say, and just mentally and physically. My father, who is still like and my parents come from big families too. I know you said you're one of 9. My mom's one of 7. My dad's one of 12. So huge families. And back in Portugal, like you didn't have material things, but my dad's house where he grew up in, and every time we would go back to Portugal, I would go there and I'm like, I cannot believe that all these people lived in this house. But the old siblings help take care of the younger siblings. There's always somebody around to help out. And just that community and that it's like you get sold, and it's funny because one of the songs I wrote back in the day, I remember talking about like the sabotage the American dream, and this whole idea of like, you're sold this idea, like you said, like the bells and whistles, like you're gonna come here, you're gonna get financially ahead, you can get financially ahead, you can get financially ahead, and you get so obsessed and you get so focused on this dream of getting financially ahead that you realize without all those material things that you might have now, you were happier. Like I remember being a kid, and I'll never forget this, and I've said this story a few times on the podcast, but I think it's important and definitely relevant. I remember being a kid and my dad one day coming home from work, and he's just like, taking off his construction boots, and you could tell he's tired, exhausted, mentally, physically exhausted, and he's like, I wish I was back in Portugal. And then I looked at him, and this is like a child who has like a TV and has a house, and
Who's been to Portugal? Like what?
I've been to where my parents, we would go back to where I was born. I was born in Shops, but we're from like a little village near Shops. And my parents didn't have any running water. They didn't have like any, legitimately, like I just pictures
That's
of
crazy.
us, like,
See, you lose me. You go too far, Ricky. You go too far. I'm gonna I'm gonna eat a sweet potato once in a while, and I need to flush the toilet.
But the thing is, like, I remember like thinking of like going back to Portugal and how they didn't have any of the material things. And as a kid, I'm just like, why would you want to be there instead of here? And then as I got older, like I started like understanding, like, okay, they went to when you're a farmer, because at the time, like when you're popping out kids, and you can afford popping out a lot of kids because each kid is free labor, right? Like everybody works on the farm. They get the option, like, hey, do you want to continue going to school and travel? Because at the time they didn't have this school that was local, only went to a certain grade. Then if you want to continue, you had to leave the town or the area, and you're like, no, we want to work on the farm, because what kid wants to continue going to school? So
Yes.
they work on the farm, and they would go to work, right? Like they would wake up in the morning when the sun comes up, right? So it'd be natural. When the sun comes up, you start your day, you're going, you're working. It's physically stressful, but I tend to believe, and I've said this over and over again, I will argue till the end of time, that we are physically designed to deal with physical stress. We've been doing that since the beginning of time. We are not designed to deal with all the mental stress we deal with all the, I have to pay my bills. Oh, my excise tax. Oh my God, I forgot to renew my license. Oh my God, the kids have library day tomorrow. Like all this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you don't realize, like I could tell you can relate, and all these things just weigh on you, and you don't realize, like, it's just one thing after another thing and another thing, and they seem little, but it's like they add up. They add up. But if I was back in Portugal, if my dad was back in Portugal, the only thing he had to worry about was waking up, bringing his sheep to go graze. Like he knew it was like a common routine. He wouldn't at his own pace, right? And but you didn't just work hard, you did play hard, right? It wasn't like
Yes.
an American way of like you work hard and then on a Saturday you get annihilated, and then
Yes.
all over, on Monday. But like every day, like we'd have huge lunches, right? Late lunches, right? And then we'd have huge dinners. We would eat late. It's funny because my parents, they've become so Americanized, and not
Yeah.
to some point where they're like, why do you eat so late? You eat like sometimes when your wife gets home at like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, Mom, Dad, what time do you guys eat dinner? Well, that's Portugal. I'm like, same thing. Like this,
Yeah.
guess what? Europeans are skinnier than Americans. So this idea that I'm gonna get fat because I'm eating late, I'm like, it is not true. I'm like, I'm not. Americans eat all day, and they already over.
Yeah, it might be better to have your body go through, I know it goes through like water and cleans your blood at night when you're sleeping, because walking around, I believe, redirects your resources to walking around, and digestion actually takes some resources. So I wouldn't be
Why
surprised
you
if
go
that,
through a food coma on Thanksgiving when you eat too much?
yeah,
Like you
yeah,
literally,
you got to go to sleep.
all your resources are going towards digesting food. So like you said, it almost makes sense to like, okay, digesting this food is going to require some resources. So why would I want to do something that requires my resources to, move or
And
do?
let's get the most out of the food, because that's another thing. It's like there are micronutrients in there that who knows if they get glossed over. That's why I think they say that like a 3-day water only fast is good, because it gets everything out, like cleans out your blood, like takes the time to, so your fasting is awesome. But there's a few things I want to say about what you're saying. One, and I'm going to go backwards. One is I was recently, I coined a term called Twisdom, like the wisdom from Twitter. Like, so I have my tweets, and that my best crowdsourcing of information is always that. So if I have a question, like, how do I solve this problem? Like, I feel sick or whatever, like somebody will give me an answer. So I said, like, should I give blood? And I got a lot of interesting responses. And when I said, I always wondered, like, we never cycle through our blood. And one of the people said that when we were just physical beings, just running squishes blood cells in the bottom of your feet and stuff. So, like, when you have physical activity, you break blood cells. Even when you like lift weights and stuff, you're breaking blood cells. They get squished, I guess. And then your body has cause to make more. And not everybody does that, and certainly not at the rate that we used to. So I agree with you. I think we're absolutely physical beings, and we have to really focus on trying to balance that out, which obviously you do. Also, life is so short, and when I tell you, I could spend every single day, like, working like a dog around my house and just having that glass of wine after dinner every single day for 100 years, and I would be happy. And I'm lucky enough, like, I love my husband, and, I love my kids, but I also like my kids. So, like, that's
I love that. There's nothing. See, this is another one, and I don't want to interrupt you. Or do you?
yeah, no, so I have one more
But
thing after
but
this.
it just like it's such an important point because I have a huge issue, and this is why so early in my podcast everybody thought I was like a some type of Portuguese socialist liberal. But I'm like I have a huge issue with like this idea of like never being content. Like to some extent, I understand using it as a motivation to try to, we're always looking for ways to self motivate to do something because we're constantly fighting procrastination. But like, to me, there's nothing wrong with being content with like just being like instead of complaining or focusing on the things we don't have, like enjoying and appreciating the things you do have. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not a part of our DNA in America. In America, it's always about like be a go-getter. It's never enough. Bigger house, newer car, newer phone, but all the those type of things.
But now it's gotten to the point where just to have what you see from like the Brady Bunch, or not the Brady Bunch, but like the Leave It to Beaver or whatever, where the dad like went and worked at the hardware store. I don't know what his job was, but like you could go to the hardware store and come home and have, a boys' room, a girls' room, your wife, dinner, a little front yard. Now, literally, like in trying to do that, we all work like absolute dogs because the tax rate is so high, I think, and other reasons. So it's like almost impossible at this point, you don't even have to strive for more. You just have to strive for that baseline. And it takes all of your time, it exhausts all of your resources, which I think is the point. But one really important thing that I wanted to say about, you said like somebody, I don't know what it was in context to, but you were saying in Portugal, like there's always somebody around to help with the kids or help with whatever you need. And I was noticing this with my mom. So she doesn't, and I shouldn't overly talk about that, but it's just been such a powerful experience in my life, and I'm experiencing it right now. So she doesn't want hospice. She doesn't want to go anywhere. She doesn't want anyone coming in but her own kids to take care of her. So she has 6 daughters, 5 now, but like, and the boys are helpful, but they can't like really help her. So we are like around the clock going there and taking care of her. And I was thinking like, I can do it. Some of my sisters are retired, and so they can do it too, but I can do it because my husband works, and I do like my full-time job is taking care of my son who has Down syndrome, but he's busy a lot and he's pretty independent now, and I can leave him with my husband at night or some, babysitter or whatever. And that's why I'm able to be there for her. And I was thinking that for everything. Like when my husband needs something, I'm here, I can do it. When my kids need something, like my job, somebody, whether it's a wife or a husband or anybody, older kid or the oldest son or whatever, somebody needs to be like you need somebody at home to like take care of it. Like just abandoning your post and not taking care of each other, taking care of your house. It's really stressful and impossible. And it reminds me of Lanny and Chud from Greener Pastures. They're like, it's not the nuclear family isn't the answer. It's the extended family. And I feel like I can, my mother doesn't want to do hospice. She wants us to take care of her. Well, you can. Like you think you can't, you're freaked out because like, how can you do that? I don't know how to do that. I don't have the time to do that. I can't be there. she made no bones. That's it. She just drew the line, which is crazy because she's never made any demands of her life. But she used to always say, like, we'd say, how are you going to take care of yourself when you're old, Mom? You never want to move out of this house. And she said, I'm just going to make saints out of you kids. I'm going to make saints out of you kids. And she's right. Like, we are there. And you can do it. And then you see what it's like to take care of somebody. And we're just divorced from that. But you have to be there. You have to have the time. And you have to just not be stressed out. You have to be able to focus and look at it and say, okay, like, maybe this chick could use a steak, like you love her. But the nurse who comes in, she won't even have that. But, you're never getting that in a nursing home or from a nurse. But it requires that somebody feel like home is where your work is.
I'm not sure that all nursing homes are horrible, but I have heard some horrible stories from nursing homes. And you're absolutely right. I mean, when COVID happened, that was one thing I would constantly highlight is like prior to 2020, Americans didn't give a shit about their elderly. And all of a sudden you're acting like we need to shut down the whole world because we need to protect grandmother.
Yeah, so true.
You were couldn't wait to throw her in a nursing home because you didn't want to take care of her.
And you couldn't even visit her in a nursing home during lockdown.
Exactly. And it's funny because I have friends that are Muslim. I have friends from all different type of cultures, Estonian, Polish, Portuguese, Salvadorian, whatever. And one thing that I find interesting with a lot of these cultures, especially like my Muslim friends, is that they all live together. They're similar like like my mother. Like I remember being in my 20s when I was like still dating and I wasn't like in a real serious relationship. People would be like, "Oh, when are you gonna move out?" I'm like, "For what?" I didn't get. Like, I'm just like, for what? I'm like, oh, pay my own bills and like be stressed. I'm like, why would I do that? I'm like, as long as I'm respectful, my mom lets me come home when I want. Like,
I had to go. There were like 10 people and
Oh,
no. So I had to go, but I totally dig that. There is absolutely no reason. And I think about that in my house. I'm like, I want my kid. I didn't like even send them away to college. I want them here. Well, I didn't put all this effort into just to ship them off. Come on, now it's time for us to have that wine together. Like I've always thought that. I'm like not crazy about kids, but I'm really looking forward to having adult kids. They're my people, which is about the nursing home and orphanage. Like, you're not sure they're all terrible. I feel like nursing homes, like orphanages, the problem is not even that people don't want to help, but I know my mother. I know what she wants. I know what she responds to. I know when she's in a good mood, when she's not in a good mood. Like, I can tell when something's wrong, and I really love her. So I want her to be happy, and I love taking care of her. Like, it's a privilege. I have a big debt of gratitude to my husband to let me, abandon my post here. But there is a difference, no matter how high end your institution is, there's something about that connection. And she said, I mean, this chick does not ever really get tears in her eyes, but she went to bed the other night and she said, and she said it repeatedly, I just feel so bad for people who don't have someone of their own to take care of them. And I was like, well, we take care of those people too, one way or another. But she's so grateful. She's not like a super emotional person, but she's super grateful because she knows that what a difference that makes. And I feel like there's no substitute, but we can't do it because we're all working like dogs. And I honestly think by the time you're older and have somebody old to take care of, you're burnt out. And the kid stuff. Also, like, you're running around like a lunatic, the library day and the sports and everything. It's just, and I totally didn't care about that stuff. And boy, were my kids behind the eight ball when it came to that kind of thing, sports and music. And by the time you're 10 years old, you have to be on the A team. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I just dropped the ball on all.
It's hard, but the thing is, like, I think the same thing. Like, I'm very appreciative of the fact that, like, right out of high school, my dad had a little construction company with a partner when I was in high school, and I kind of learned to trade in the summer. And then right out of high school, he's like, listen, he's like, things aren't working out with a partner. He's like, I'm either going to go work for other people, or you guys can take advantage of this opportunity and I'll keep some of the equipment and we'll go on our own. And so that's what we did. But as like, I've always enjoyed other like life outside of work. Like, work was just a means to an end. And so, like, I never invested that. Like, I wasn't one of those career first people. I played music. I played basketball. I was a gym rat. For a while I was doing martial arts. I always had tons of hobbies and tons of things to do, and work got in the way of all those things. So like to me, like, I never put my 100% effort and time into work. And as time went by, when I had kids, I'm like, wow, like stunting the growth of this company is good, because I'm like, what's happened is like, maybe I don't have tons of ones and zeros in the bank account, but I have tons of free time, like, or at least not free time, because when you own a business, you're always kind
You've
of,
got some balance.
yeah, I have some balance, and I have
Is
the
it fun though, being construction? Like, is that fun to watch something emerge?
yeah, but I hate construction. I do, and
Oh, really? I
yeah,
think I would love it.
I like, well, I like that part of it, right? Like and my father, like, he hates paperwork, and I think that like going out
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
with his
Yeah.
hands, and like when we first went into business in '03 or '04, when first got out of high school, he like I could check my like emails and like do paperwork like at the end of the workday. And
Yeah.
now it's like I
It's
have
a whole day.
days and days catching up
Yeah.
on paperwork. And so and again, like that part of it it's funny, because sometimes like, so I'll catch up to paperwork and it'll be a nice day, and I'm like, I'm going out in the field, I'm helping the guys out, I'm just going to spend all day on the field, out in the field with the guys, pouring concrete, doing whatever we're doing. And I'm not even going to look at my emails or any of that stuff. And at the end of the day, I'm exhausted, but I feel great. And I'm like, oh my God,
Oh, yeah.
I'm hanging out with the other guys, I'm bullshitting, we're telling stories, we're talking about this, we're talking about that while we're working. I'm like, this is what we're like designed.
Yeah.
What like a decent work, like a decent job is like this. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're actually much happier.
Kaczynski.
Yeah, instead,
Yeah. It's the power principle.
yeah. I mean, if you're in front of a cubicle every day, like that looks like the ideal job for the outsider, or for the kid who's like, I don't want to work with my hands, but it's like it's way more rewarding, and it's a much
Yeah.
less stressful, like doing stuff when you have like numbers and zeros, and you have paperwork that needs to be turned in and all this stuff, and you have people yelling at you because this is delayed or that's delayed or you did this incorrectly. It's much more stressful, and mental stress, like I said, we can't tolerate mental stress like we can physical stress. Physical stress, like since the beginning of time, we've been able to deal with it. I say it's like a classic car, right? Like if you garage it and you don't drive it, you think like one day, 10 years from now, I can just start it up and it works.
Yeah.
But no, it was engineered and designed to move. So those gears, those tires, though, everything was designed to move. So it needed to be lubricated, and still it needed to continue moving from time to time. And if you don't move it, it just falls apart. And that's our bodies. Like we sit in front of a cubicle and we have this car that's designed to move, but we're not driving it. And then it starts slowly falling apart.
Yeah, it's gonna get rusty. Yeah, I do look at Uncle Ted sometimes, and I think this, even just the specialization of labor, the monotony of being like a lawyer for 80 hours a week or whatever, it's just not natural. And I think it makes people miserable. So and it's funny because when I went down that path, really, I always thought of being a mom or a wife or whatever as just something I allocated in my headspace 0. Like it just doesn't take any time. It's an afterthought. You can get somebody else to do it. But when push came to shove, I was like, I'm going to have babies and leave them, like, how is that going to work? And then I had my first son had Down syndrome. It was totally off the table, but I realized how misguided I was, and that it's so much better to have the human interaction. And I think, like, on a hopeful note, to wrap it up on a hopeful note, is that what I think the powers that be, and this is the week for the World Economic Forum global meeting, and their theme is like rebuilding trust, which good luck with that. And yes, as a tweet said, like, that implies that they had it in the first place. But I've been realizing that our relationships and doing stuff like, coaching your kids or cooking dinner, for crying out loud, is like is almost like an earth mother thing to do these days. But and I noticed this with my mom, and she had a new great grandbaby, and I see the whole family coming together despite all of our differences. And I realized that the greatest weapon that we have against this power, which they don't understand, is raising our kids right, giving them that, and like the importance of relationships, of ethics, of morality, of, one thing she said is like, don't, tell your kids, like, ask themselves what they can give, and look at them and love them. And, and she just thinks of teaching children and seeing how they can contribute. And I don't think these these people on the top, I don't think they get it. And I think that's what our strength is, just each person. You don't even have to get your neighbors to see the truth about chemtrails, which would be nice though. But you don't have to. All you have to do is raise your kids right. And that is going to take some time. But it's a joy.
But that's also what they're trying to prevent us from doing, right? It's like it's putting us in debt, so we're a slave to our job, making sure we spend all our energy and time and the best years of our lives, kind of just helping some big corporation make quarterly gains, and then send our kids off to daycare, normalize that, right? That the school system is raising your kids. So whatever the state says your kids should be learning, that's what they're learning. Control the social media, platforms and YouTube and algorithms. So, and then you can force feed them any information or narrative you want. And by the time you realize what's going on, it's too late. I know parents that told me, and I couldn't grasp it. I'm like, they're like I can't get through to my daughter. My daughter, I've lost her. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's going to college. She's like, I can't, she's brainwashed. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, how did this happen? Like, we didn't see it coming. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, could that happen to me? Like, or do
it could happen to you. I saw it happen because I live in LA, and there's a lot of influences there. You get them back. Like you get them back because they get out into the real world and they realize that you were right and you love them, and these false assumptions don't actually result, like the cause and effect isn't there. So if you raise them right, in my opinion, you get them back.
Well, that's good to know, because there's probably a lot of people that are going through those issues right now with just their you being so focused on work and all this stuff, and that's why what you're saying is so important, because we need to spend more time being involved with our kids. Like, I always say, if you're not in their lives, answering their questions, helping mold their worldview, somebody else is, and you're not going to like that's why, like, when I was going to the school
That's what takes your place.
Yeah, exactly. And the school board meetings, like when I was going to them, like this idea of like teachers helping out with like these important questions and scenarios in your life, like, no. You should be going to your parents with these questions. Like, I don't want that teacher, answering the most important questions in your life and helping
You have to be there for that. Car rides, long car, no phones in kitchens and cars. If you can do that, kitchens and cars, that's where you are with your kids. If you can do that, they'll look out the window, they'll eat their food, they'll say something to you, and you have that opportunity. But you have to be there.
But that's why the dinners, right? The fast food, like you should just eliminate that. Like, dinner is not just a moment where you just stuff calories in your system to burn eventually. It's supposed to be a sacred moment of the day, a sacred time of the day. In Europe, like in Portugal, like in Portugal, Italy, a lot of Western Europe, like everything closes from like noon to like 2.
Who's going to cook? Like well, for there, maybe they do that. But like here, does your wife have the opportunity to cook? Do you cook? Like, it takes some time. If you're in a hurry and it's 6 o'clock, if you don't get off of work till 5, what are you going to do? It's mac and cheese, right? I don't like mac and cheese, but I'll do something else quick and dirty, but not that.
That's another thing about the way we eat is like, we eat ribs, we eat steak, we eat pork, so it's like you throw on the grill, like it doesn't take that long. You grill some food, you make a little salad.
That's true. You know what? You're right. You're right. Actually, that is true. Yeah, that's true.
Marinating food, like sometimes if we have the time, we'll marinate things way in advance and just put some
No, you're right. It doesn't take that long, and it's delish, and it's so great for you.
Yeah, and you have local butcher shops. Hopefully, you have local places where you can get the stuff freshly cut.
Yeah, on the way home. Yeah,
throw it on the grill, throw some salt on it, some sea salt on it. Get a glass of wine. Well, not if you're a kid, but if you're an adult, get a glass of wine. Enjoy the smells, the scents, the aromas, the things that we neglect so often. And that's why I also think like the popularity of cigars, whiskey, bourbon's gotten huge. Wine, you see more and more young people drinking wine. I think we've been so detached from like just enjoying the simple things that people are now like looking for them and starting.
But this is the white pill. This is the white pill. I have discovered it because I said on the Union of the Unwanted recently. I absolutely have proof positive, which I'm sharing with nobody, but proof positive that the black pill is a CIA operation. And there's no doubt in my mind. And as a result, I started thinking about it. It's the white pill is the answer. And what is the white pill? First of all, take joy in God's creation in your life. Make sure you have those relationships, influence just by example, love, whatever, your own family. And what a great pleasure and joy it is to that. And you know what? If we have to be martyrs on Judgment Day here on earth, like if Revelation is real or whatever, and we got to deal with that, that is the best way to prepare for it. Say your prayers, hug your kids, and enjoy. Because I think the spiritual effort is those connections with the people in your life and your family. Keep them close, keep them happy. Don't freak out all the time. And yes, I mean, when I do turn my attention to like the news of the day or the deeper stuff that people are worrying about, they are absolutely right. But I'm not sure we have any control over the big picture. And that doesn't necessarily have to depress you. You can rejoice in the liberation of not being responsible for the direction of the world and just be responsible for yourself and your family.
But I think actually only being responsible for yourself and your family and being a good person, focusing on those things will have an effect on the bigger picture. If more people did those things.
Oh, think of how many people that there are who have the right mindset. I mean, hundreds of millions of people probably in this country have their mind like in that space, just regular people. And billions in the world. Yeah, that's right. That if everybody did it, and it is the natural instinct, and that's probably why the propaganda works so hard to derail people and to blackpill them and to sexualize kids and all the things that are truly bad. It's 24/7, 1,000 channels a day. That's a lot of effort because that's a big job. And I think because of what you're saying, I think they might not win it.
Well, we're doing another union show. I think the first one of the year, the 22nd. So I'll
Perfect.
link
I can do it. That's amazing because I'm like at my mom's half the time, but that is absolutely perfect.
Awesome. Well, I know I'm taking up a lot of your time. You're a busy woman. You have
Yeah,
a lot,
we're good.
but
Thank you.
let people know where they can keep up with you, your deep dives.
Thank you. Yes. So monicasdeepdives.com is my URL at the moment. That's my podcast and everything. And I wanted to do this in the beginning of 2024, but I'm absolutely just putting everything on hold for my mom. But what I really am working towards is, I was trained on WSB to have the Monica Perez show, and I think I'm going to bring it back the way it was supposed to be, which is just every single day, daily news. And I got my feedback from WSB, so I can revert that on Apple and everything. So look out for the relaunch. But in the meanwhile, I still have like 1,000 shows on Monica's Deep Dives. I'm still doing interviews, but that's something I'm really looking forward to in 2024. And of course, I'm on rockfin.com/deep dives.
Awesome. And I'll put all those links in the show description. There's so many topics that I want to get into that we didn't even touch, but
I know we never do because we're spending the time catching up. So we'll have to do a little more. We'll do another one soon or in like maybe a few months, and we'll get to the meaty stuff. And I feel like we should have had a glass of wine. That's what this should have been.
maybe we can do a late show next time. We'll have a glass of wine.
Perfect.
On a later show. But yeah, we'll definitely have to get you again because there's so many. I mean, I want to get your opinions on Dave Zed, a friend of ours who from Generation on Tim Pool's show, the culture war. They talked about Malaysia airline and all the all the evidence that maybe it could be suppressed technology, government technology. And obviously we both love ancient aliens and that whole conversation. So I'm like, there's so many other rabbit holes I think that we could go down. But
MH370 is my wheelhouse for sure. But yes, well, there will always be another show, Ricky. There will always be another time for us to talk about all these things. But it's really fun to catch up with you. And I just feel like it's so positive. Your attitude is so positive. I just love it. It really gives me a little, puts a little wind under my sails.
I'm glad because a lot of people do get depressed listening to these type of topics and conversations, and I try to be hopeful. I'm always trying to be optimistic, and I also love having conversations like these because the fact that people like you are out in the world with such a great outlook and fighting the good fight with me and putting out good.
Your life is positive. Your life is a positive example. Even if your head goes to the wrong places, what you're doing is like we should all take a page out of your book.
You're too kind, Monica.
It's true.
Too kind. I try. I think we're all doing doing our best. I try to focus a lot of my time and energy on things that make me happy and things that bring me peace. And with some of the things that make me happy, a lot of the things that make me happy is making other people happy and been trying to be a positive impact on their lives. And a quote I say all the time is like a good coach can change a game, a great coach can change a life. And that's just something I constantly remind myself is like as a kid, especially as a foreigner kid who didn't fit in much of my life. I didn't have a lot of older adults who took the time to talk to me or, give me tips or just give me advice or whatnot. And anything that I had, I didn't really have a mentor, but I like anybody who came close to that took the time to like talk to me and teach me some things and share some wisdom. It stuck with me. And I don't know why certain conversations or certain people stuck with me, but they did. So I never take for granted that, we're all doing that. And that was kind of the idea of the ripple effect when I first started the show, was this idea that like we can all start ripple. We never know who we're impacting or how far that impact will go, but we're all doing something. And I think in many cases, that's very true. I mean, like I said, like how many adults changed our lives or helped mold our worldviews, and in that moment that adult had no idea the impact they were having, right? So we're doing that too constantly, and we just don't know it. So so it's important to have these great people like all of us that participate in the Hume Done Want, to just going our separate ways in our own personal lives, kind of spreading these positive ideas and open-mindedness and really doing our best to kind of fight back in this spiritual war that we all are feeling and sensing. And if we can't quantify it, we definitely know there's something going on, and hopefully we're doing our best to push back.
I totally agree. And I can't wait. I'll see you on Monday. And keep fighting the good fight.
You too, Monica. We'll keep in touch. I'll send you links to the show once it's up and live. And of course, it's open source, so feel free to share it and post it anywhere.
Thanks, Ricky.
Thanks, Monica. Take care.